Actually,
We finish our presentation and then you have the cross-examination, proceed from that.
Well, actually, the rules provide otherwise. Under, was it 4L? I'm sorry, that was it says under 4G, for cross-examination by opponents after testimony of each expert witness. So rules provide for the cross-examination. Each witness testifies in the cross-examination, then move on to next witness and so forth. The board.
The rules.
Mr. Martin, you can take the microphone if you'd like. I'm just going to put mine. Mr. Martin, how many, I'm sorry, Steve McGillivray, I represent Gladding Shops LLC, Rocket Realty, Federal Properties of Rhode Island, and 11 State Street, who are objectors to the grant of the zoning variances. Mr. Martin, how many spots are available under your plan? Okay, so there are 49 spots proposed. The Belvedere Hotel, what district is that in?
It's in the downtown district?
That's the D district under the ordinances, correct?
That's correct.
Are you required to provide off-street parking in the district?
No.
Okay. So the Belvedere Hotel doesn't require any off-street parking?
The hotel does not.
Okay.
Yep.
The only thing that might require parking is your proposed 20-unit Belvedere-at-Thames, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and how many parking spaces, off-street parking spaces are required per unit in the W zone?
30.
How many per unit? I don't think we need 30 for each unit. That would seem
For
excessive.
residential unit,
Yes.
there's 2 required.
Mr. Martin, can you please try to talk into the mic as much as possible? Thank you.
2.
So you need 40. You need 40 parking spaces for the 20 units.
That's correct.
Okay. And how many spaces does the restaurant need? Do you want to correct your witness, Mr. Kelly?
I just want to point out I'd just like to point out that the actual zoning requirement is 1.5 per unit.
So that's 30 parking spaces are required for the Belvedere-at-Thames, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
There's a restaurant use there though too, correct?
that's correct.
Okay. And how many spaces does that require?
6.
Okay. So you have 36 spaces that are required instead of the 49 proposed, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. So could you seek, if you only got 36 spaces, could you seek a lesser variance with respect to the space between the stalls?
Could a lesser variance be requested if we had increased the spaces?
Yeah. No, it decreased it to 36.
If we provided only 36 spaces, we could reduce the variance request.
Okay, thank you. Now, lot 3 on which the Belvedere Hotel sits is a separate lot, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what you were addressing tonight is a development that's proposed for lot 6, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and lot 6 and lot 3 have not been merged, have they?
No.
Okay, they've not been turned into condominiums either, have they?
No, not that I'm aware.
They are separate lots, correct?
Yes.
And everything that you're proposing here tonight is on lot 6?
Except the physical access to the second level parking deck from John Street.
From downstream, right.
Yeah.
But now, how about, so everything's on lot 6, except for that. Do you know when Mr. Reuter or one of his entities bought lot 6?
No.
Okay. You said you were involved in 2003 when the master plan was...
Correct.
Did he or one of his entities own lot 6 at that time?
I don't believe so, not at that time.
Okay. Now, do you know what was on lot 6 at the time he purchased it?
A gravel parking lot.
Okay. Were there any structures?
No,
Are you sure of that?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Good. Is that something you could check and try to be more sure about?
There was no buildings demolished at the time.
Okay.
There was a building structure at the corner of State and Thames that was like a house type structure that was on a separate parcel of land at the time. That's correct.
But no structures on that lot?
Correct.
Okay. In any event, they are separate lots, they have not been merged, they're not sub-condominiums.
Correct.
Okay. And, last question. Are there any variances still in place for lot 6 that are still effective?
I haven't done a zoning analysis to determine whether they were still effective.
Well, do you know when those previous variances were granted?
I believe it was 2007, but I don't have the document in front of me.
Do you know how long zoning ordinances last before they expire?
I don't know if it's been extended or requested for continued extensions or not, so I don't know.
So the answer is you don't know?
No, I don't know.
Thank you.
So, a couple of questions, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Martin? The 49 spaces that are proposed are to use the existing steel parking deck that was constructed in reliance on the master plan approval of the 3 phases of this project. Is that right?
I would object to that question. It's a legal question. There's a lot of
I guess I would just ask you to rephrase it as a question. Seemed to be more of a statement.
The proposed parking is 49 spaces, correct?
Yes.
And the 49 spaces are located in, on or below the existing steel parking deck. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so the 49 spaces are provided to use, are they being provided so as to use that space that's previously been constructed and or set aside for parking?
Yes.
And the steel deck for parking was approved by the town?
That's correct.
Now, if we were to provide less than 49 spaces, would it be true that the entire deck area would not be able to be used for parking?
Correct, yes. Yes.
And so, if the 49 spaces being provided so as to use the entire deck area that was constructed in anticipation of this building?
Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Can I just ask one question? How many spaces are currently there?
I don't know.
But you just testified that it was built for 49 spaces.
Yeah, I don't have the, I don't know how it's marked today, but I know it was originally designed for all 3 phases. This deck was, if you look
That
at,
property wasn't owned.
it was actually part of the parcel 6 without the corner lot, was entirely part of the master plan that showed the carriage house, the Belvedere, and the building on Thames Street. And the building on Thames Street, if you look at the original master plan, wrapped around this deck. And this deck structure and that building were all integral to one project. And that's kind of why there was access provided from John Street. The State Street property, or the Thames Street property, would access from Thames to get underneath the deck. So you'd have different buildings on the project or the property as a whole using different parts of the deck. I mean, it really was. You look at the old plan, the new plan is the building on parcel 6 is different, if that's clear, but it really is the same project. It was always envisioned to be another building on Thames Street with this wrapping around this parking structure.
Mr. Chairman,
I have a couple of questions.
excuse me, Mr. McGilvery. There's been, excuse me, there's been.
Sure, the board members are going to get to interrupt anytime they want with their questions, okay? And then, Mr. you've come back with one, and Mr. McGilvery can come back with his follow-up, just a rebuttal, nothing new.
There's been a lot of references to the original plan, and I would have liked to have looked at it, but I was advised not to because it's not part of the record. If they're going to keep bringing it up, I think I should look at it, because they keep referencing it and they're talking about it. If you look at the original plan, it's been brought up several times. If we're supposed to know what the plan is, then I want to review it.
And Charlie, to your point, if this is considered phase 3, and we had nothing to do with either phase 1
Well,
or
I agree, but
phase 2.
yeah, I just like to make sure that I have all the information before us, if they're going to keep, or they can stop talking about it and make it part of this record. But I like feel at a disadvantage that it's been referenced several times so far in this, during the application.
Do we have any access to any of that stuff, Ben? No.
Not tonight.
But actually, the original plan.
I think,
Nothing, correct?
if I may, there was a plan that, as Mr. Martin just testified, there was a multi-phase project, and the first part was the restoration of the old Belvedere Hotel, included the carriage house, the parking deck, and there was a building that was referred to as the liner building, meaning it lined the street of Thames Street. And there were plans of that. In fact, I think they were in the record that was before the Historic District Commission as well. I think those were introduced by certain people. I think the point to make here is it's the position of the town that the approval that was granted at that point expired, particularly that the major land development project, which included that phase, expired by the passage of time. So it is not part of this record. Now, that doesn't mean that anybody, either side, if they want, can introduce those plans. It's just part of the overall evidence. It's not binding to say, yep, this is what you approved, I've still got the approval, or we wouldn't be here at all. But obviously this appears to be one of the issues of similarities, so I think it would behoove one or both of the parties at some point to introduce it into the record, rather of this case, rather than have you, and I think that was the idea of not looking at the old one, because that's a legal nullity, but it's still there. It's somewhat like when you hear questions and people come and tell you, well, the tax assessor's records say something. Those aren't binding on you at all, but they can be informative and you might want to see them to know what they say. So this would be that sort of thing. So I guess you've made your request and hopefully the parties will do it, will provide it to you.
Mr. Chairman, there are also a couple of references to the appeals. And for me personally, I've tried to separate those proceedings from this hearing. So if people could refrain from assuming that we glean something from that, I would appreciate it, because I'm trying to just review the evidence for what's being presented to us as a zoning board of review.
So could someone, not right now, but next time we meet up, give us some of the information that we're looking for, some of these old plans that we can refer to, so when you people refer to, we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, part of the reason I bring up the old plan is that some of the improvements were actually built already specifically for this project, such as utilities and things like that. And it also lends some background as to why is the deck there now? What is it doing? And is it there just for the Belvedere, or is it there for something else? And that's the reason I bring it up. I realize that some of those approvals and variances may not be valid and all that stuff, but it does provide some context to what is built.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Martin, your testimony is stated, the reason why there are 49 spaces is because you want to use the whole area of the parking structure that's there. Is that correct?
Yes,
But that's going to be torn down as part of your proposal, correct?
may or may not be.
Well, that's been, up till now, that's in your proposal right now, you'll agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And who put the parking lot there? So who installed it?
I don't know the contractor that installed it.
No, I'm talking about who owned the property when it was installed or erected.
I believe Mr. Reuter did.
Okay. So it's something that he did himself, correct?
Correct.
And at the time, there was nothing on lot 6 that required parking, was there? There's no building on lot 6 that required parking.
There was no building, that's correct.
Only building that we were talking about other than that at that time was the Belvedere Hotel.
Belvedere, John, Thames, the carriage house.
Anyway, the Belvedere Hotel doesn't require any parking.
That's correct.
And can I just ask you, I just want a point of clarification, maybe Mr. Tanner can help us. How many parking spots per unit are required in the waterfront district? My reading is 1.
It's up to the chair. Do you want Mr. Tanner to respond to this or not? And I'm going to ask. So first, just would you identify yourself for the record?
Edward Tanner, I'm the Bristol Zoning Enforcement Officer. And Section 28252 of the Bristol Zoning Ordinance, residential uses in the waterfront zone require 1 parking space, off-street parking space per dwelling unit.
So with that information, Mr. Martin, does that change your opinion of how many parking spaces are required for this project?
Yes.
Okay. How many are required now?
There are 20 units.
So if you only put 20 parking spaces in there, could you ask for a lot fewer variances?
If we put fewer parking spaces, we could ask for a lower variance, correct?
I'll tell you, from a board, for our perspective, my perspective at least, the more parking spaces you have, I think the better, because parking is very tough down there. So you having more spaces, I think that's a plus.
I don't want to testify to the old plan because I don't want the board to think that the parking spaces were built for the prior project or what the prior board said. So I really can't enter that, but clearly, if the board is feeling that way today, there are prior boards that felt the same way.
Mr. Martin, can you tell us what the square footage is of the proposed restaurant?
Yes, one moment. (3,117 square feet, approximately.
And did you say the code only requires 6 spaces for 3,100 square foot restaurant?
6 spaces.
6. And, by providing additional spaces in this parking area, is that also providing overflow parking for the restaurant?
Yes.
One question. What's the occupancy of the restaurant?
I don't know. The tenant, or I don't know what the tenant is.
Just wondering how many restaurants, how many people the restaurant would hold. 3,000 square feet. I'm sorry?
Wait, stop. You're not testifying yet, but identify yourself with witness warning. So, Mr. Kelly, do you want to respond to that now, or you have another witness who will be responding to that?
We'll have another witness respond to expected number of seats in a 3,100 square foot.
Thanks. Okay. So, ready for your next witness?